Hello everybody, you're watching The Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood in our glorious new fancy studio where we get to do things like this. Oh, motion graphics. Isn't that fantastic? We're making Gotham great again. I want to talk about what Tulsi Gabbard has been doing. She has been pushing hard to get us out of war. She's like one of the only ones. So Tulsi Gabbard on the administration's push for war in Syria, the Congresswoman has accused President Trump and Vice President Pence of protecting al-Qaeda and other jihadist forces in Syria. This is by James Carden. This was in The Guardian. This is what she goes on to say. This, they kind of show the transcripts of the interview, which is in the show notes below. This, continued Gabbard, is a betrayal of the American people, especially the victims of al-Qaeda's attack on 9/11 and their families, first responders, and my brothers and sisters in uniform who have been killed or wounded in action, and their families. For the president, who is commander-in-chief, to act as the protective big brother of al-Qaeda and other jihadists must be condemned by every member of Congress. At least somebody's doing something about it. She's speaking up. She's one of the few people that is speaking up. And of course, when she speaks up, it's sometimes people on the left call her an Assad apologist. If you watch those interviews she did with Jimmy Dore, they're pretty fantastic. My one criticism is she still thinks the Democratic Party can be reformed from within. I do not agree, especially since Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just endorsed Cuomo, which is preposterous considering that Cuomo, you know, goes to Albany, New York, and just makes deals with the Republican New York State Senate and House. I don't know why she would do that. I don't know why she would do that. But here's what Tulsi Gabbard is saying. Is what she said in this interview. In the short term, President Trump would benefit the most. The president loves being adored and praised and despised. Despite his rants against them, he especially craves the favor of the media. Trump remembers very well the only times he has been praised almost universally by the mainstream media, Republicans and Democrats, was when he engaged in aggressive military actions. Brian Williams, Fareed Zakaria, and others could hardly contain their delight. Others who would gain the most are al-Qaeda and the terrorist organizations who are wanting to keep alive the regime change war against Assad. Their war to overthrow Assad is about to end. They're finally facing defeat, a U.S. attack that significantly weakens the Syrian military and would be a gift to these terrorist groups who want to overthrow the government and set up a Sunni extremist theocracy in Damascus. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Qatar would be the beneficiaries. This is what's going on. You see how crazy our warmongering kleptocracy is? You see this? Oh, after 9/11, we got to defeat al-Qaeda, defeat al-Qaeda. Okay. Now we're backing them because we want Assad out of there. The reason we want Assad out of there is a pipeline. Syria and Russia and Iran have their own pipeline. We want our pipeline with Saudi Arabia, and Assad won't play ball with us. Gaddafi didn't play ball with us. We put a bullet in his head. Saddam didn't play ball with us. We put a bullet in his head. Saddam, who we backed in the 80s in the Iraq-Iran war. You see this? And Tulsi Gabbard, who was in a ridiculous regime change war, has friends of hers who did not come home, is speaking up. And when she does this, people like Howard Dean, you know, belittle her. I don't know where Howard Dean ever served. But it's just ridiculous. And the other thing that no one in the mainstream media seems to talk about. Like, and when I hear people on the left, war, do you know what war is? Do you know what war looks like? I kind of do, just from going over there as a comedian, just seeing it kind of from the sidelines. It's pretty horrible. Not to mention people like Tulsi Gabbard who actually were in it. I visited a lot of wounded soldiers in Iraq, Afghanistan, and here in the States. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. Who would suffer the most? The Syrian people, who are pleading to be left alone so they can try to rebuild their country. When I visited Syria, people shared their desperation with me, asking me to share their message with the American people. We're not begging for your money or your help. We are simply begging you to stop supporting the terrorists who are destroying our country. Please let us live in peace. We're supporting ISIS and Al-Qaeda and killing civilians. Where is the sanity in this? What is the point of this? A U.S. attack will increase the likelihood of more U.S. troop casualties, injuries, and suffering, and billions more dollars of taxpayer money wasted that could instead be used to improve the lives of the American people. Exactly. So it's money that could help our lives that we're spending to then really ruin other people's lives. So Americans and Syrians get screwed over. But the Saudis and the oil lobby, they do well. Good. Glad we're taking care of them. Here's what else she said. Based on our country's continued counterproductive regime change war policies, it is clear that the leaders on both sides of the aisle have not learned the painful lessons of decades of interventionist regime change wars, most recently in Iraq, Libya, and now Syria. Libya, that has now opened slave markets because there was a power vacuum after we got rid of Gaddafi. Great. The result has been costly for the American people in human lives and taxpayer dollars, and devastating for the people of these countries, where countless lives have been lost, humanitarian crisis created, with refugees being forced from their homes, and the utter destruction of their way of life. I recently fought to strip a provision from the 2018 Defense Authorization Bill that essentially authorizes the Secretaries of State and Defense to go to war with Iran. Only 60 members of Congress supported my amendment. That's the war machine. That's who Tulsi Gabbard is going against. Well, I would love for her to be the next president of the United States. I don't even see her getting the nomination from the Democratic Party. 60 members of Congress supported my amendment. There's a provision in the 2018 Defense Authorization Bill that lets Secretaries of State and Defense go to war with Iran. Recruitment's down in the Army, by the way. Last time that was down, 2007, 2008. Oh, weird. We had a recession. Look for a recession and some false flags. Get ready. They're coming. They're coming. They're coming. Furthermore, Tulsi Gabbard says, Iran's presence and influence in Iraq was zero before we overthrew Saddam Hussein. Now Iran is the dominant power in Iraq. Oh, good. So we blew up Iraq, so now Iran's more powerful. Great. Now we have more justification to invade Iran. We want to invade Iran. That's exactly what we're trying to do. The problem is that our leaders are either extremely short-sighted or they're consciously working against the interests of the United States and our allies. Yeah. She's talking about the interests of like the United States people, the logical interests, not the corporate benefactors that actually control the government. This is why she doesn't take corporate money. The undeniable truth is that the direct result of our overthrowing the regimes of Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, and our efforts to overthrow Assad has greatly increased the presence and influence of Russia and Iran, as well as Al-Qaeda and other jihadists in all three of those countries. But at least the mainstream media, boy, they're really against war. Remember how against war they were?
Go into greater detail. We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these two U.S. Navy vessels in the Eastern Mediterranean. I am tempted to quote the great Leonard Cohen, I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons. And they are beautiful pictures of fearsome armaments making what is for them.
Beautiful, he just called them. Beautiful rockets. Rockets that could have made your kids' schools better. Rockets that could have gone so people actually had free health care. But rockets that went to go destroy people, to be the rockets that were sent in support of Al-Qaeda that killed civilians. Brian Williams, mainstream media, beautiful. I'm proud. That's just appalling listening to that guy talk. It's appalling. And that's what we're up against. Thank you for supporting the show, you guys. Please go to the Patreon. I got live shows coming up. San Francisco, Sacramento, Orlando, other parts of Florida. Check it out. GrahamElwood.com below.